thank you for agreeing to speak with me about your experiences with mathematics in high school when you were a young man.
Okay.
So to begin with, do you mind telling me how learning mathematics worked for you as a young man? You may begin by talking about the resources available to you
that I had when I was in high school.
When you were in high school, yes.
For mathematics, I think I would rather want to go a little bit back from high school.
That's good.
I'll go to elementary school. Primary school, I would say I was good. I was averagely okay with mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went to middle school, those old system middle school, I got myself caught up in some other things that took me out of school.
Mm.
So I spent a lot of time out of school.
Okay.
Middle school was 4 years, right? So my first year middle school, I was okay. By the time I was going to second year, I got myself involved with some other things that took my time out of school. And so if you're not going to school, you're not learning.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Okay, so for 2 years, second year, third year, I was probably a few days going to school.
Mm.
Most of the time I was out of school.
Wow.
So fourth year, when you were supposed to sit for the final exams, that was when I got the wake up. It's just about time for you to take your final exams. And those days, the school system was not set up so that they were able to pick on these things. There was no exam for you to go to the next class. It is just mass promotion. Yes, there was no promotion exams. It was just the entire class is moved to the next class because there's going to be you have to make room for the next
class. Right.
So it was just this mass promotion. So when I got to Form 4, that was when you're supposed to start preparing for your final exams. And that's when I got the wake-up call that at this point, I probably even couldn't read the textbooks for Form 2.
Mm.
Because I skipped
all of those
yes.
levels.
And my own college, because there was this competition among schools at the time, if to see which school did better based on average. Okay, so everybody passed means the school has 100%. And some fails means your percentages start to slide down.
Right.
And my school happened to be one of the schools that was doing very good. And they would compare year by year. This year they had 100%. This year they had this percent. This year, so it was not. It came to a point where the effort moved from the individual to the group. The individual wasn't just looking for I want to pass, but the individual was looking to we all want to pass and make sure our school get 100%. Yes. So there was that. So now I got myself caught up in a situation where my own colleagues found me to be a burden on them.
So that's
because now, if you fail, then the entire class...
You're bringing the statistics down.
So, but to your point, instead of them rather thinking the way you just taught, let's pull him along. They actually was lobbying the school to turn me back to Form 3, so I don't have to be a problem with them.
I see. Huh.
Somehow, I managed to get past that and got promoted to Form 4 to be with them. I had no friend in class because I became a problem.
You were going to be in trouble.
You're going to be the one that was going to drag the percentage down. Everybody was working hard. So now I had to get that wake-up call. And I would say for my academic work going forward, that was the starting point.
It was the turning point.
It was the turning point for me. And so what I did was this. I had one friend who was a year ahead of me. So at the time I'm talking about when I was in Form 4, he was already in secondary school. Middle school was only 4 years.
Oh, I see. Good.
So he was already in Form 1 in secondary school. So I got in touch with him, and he agreed to start helping me out. So we set up a process where I would leave home much earlier than school would start. Me and him would meet because the elementary school and the secondary school was very close. It was just like the middle school is here and the secondary school campus is right there. So he would walk over to the middle school campus, meet me in the class, walk me through some things for a couple of minutes and then go back. So we do this daily.
Wow.
We would do this daily. He would walk over, he would take me through. So somehow I discovered that not that I wasn't good, but it's just that I just didn't practice. I just didn't do things.
And practice.
Now that he was showing me how to do things, I started to pick up. And this, my friends didn't know what I was doing.
Of course, because that was before school.
That was before school. But all of a sudden they realized in class, my improvement was just too astronomical. It was just too quick. They didn't understand how you went from all the way down here and now all the way to the top. It would be something had happened. So I would say if outside help, not necessarily from school, if you can seek help from friends, from brothers, from whatever, that's a very good resource. So that would be coming from middle school. So I took that again, followed me to secondary school. But in secondary school, there was something a little different. We talk about resource, how you was able to do it, you help yourself. We used to have, I don't know if that happened in Nigeria, we used to have what we call house masters.
Oh yes.
Okay, those things. And then class dormitory masters. And
oh yes. Yes.
So we had this man who was actually teaching geography and who happened to be our house master. Very involved with that. Most of the masters who was assigned to houses, they just did it by title.
It was just a chore.
Yes, it was just a title. Not like you were my house master, but that was the end of it. Yeah. But this man was involved with his house members. He took the house as if they were his kids, right? He comes to meet the entire house every Saturday night. You all come together in a hall, and he will sit there. He will talk to you. You ask questions, and one of the things he would emphasize most was the strategy for learning. And I picked that from him. He will tell you what you need to do to be effective in learning. It's not just about taking your book and going to the classroom and reading. It's not just about taking a pen and a pencil and a piece of paper and trying to practice your math. But he shows us some way, and that was very helpful. Now, with mathematics, which at the time most of us had issues with, one thing he showed us, which I carried on, was that you go to class for today's lesson.
Right.
Do not allow a day to pass without you practicing to make sure you grasp that concept or not.
Before you move to the next one. Don't allow a day to pass. Don't finish your math class. Go home and pack the book and wait till a week later to come back and practice what you did today. So now you're looking at a week's record of, because mathematics was every day, right?
Right. Even if it is not every day, just allowing times to lapse
between learning and
what you learn and making sure that you really understand that concept before moving on. So his advice to us was, every single day when you do your personal timetable for your study,
right,
make sure you create a room somewhere, particularly for your mathematics, because like we said, we had identified that as the core problem
for most people. Right.
So create room for mathematics. So whatever you did in class, which is just going to be 5-10 minutes though, because you already did it in class.
Right.
So when you go in today and your lesson today, your personal study today is history, take your math book with you. When you get to where you're going to study for history, you put your history book down first. Go to the math, just for what you did that day. You're not studying math, just for what you did that day. Just go over what you did in class and see if those things you learned in class, you understood them like you did. You were able to go through them, work one example, and then put it down.
Right.
And then go to your history.
Right.
The next day, maybe you study geography. You take your geography and math. Do the same thing for math. On the day that you have math, that will be when you go back to the entire week and then you do everything, brush up everything.
Interesting.
Right.
So when you eventually plug back into studying, and this is now high school, can you think about all of the topics in high school that you were confronted with? And what I want you to do is, on the one hand, tell me which was the easy subject for you
in mathematics.
which was the toughest or hard to crack subject in mathematics?
In secondary school, we used to have the general math, and then you have advanced, or what we used to call additional order mathematics.
Right.
Okay. So I somehow figured that I was kind of a little stronger in math compared to my colleagues. So with the elementary math, which was or the core math for everybody,
for everyone,
I didn't really find much of it to be hard, right? There was only one aspect of it, and I wanted to move out a little bit. I don't know at what point we may be talking about that, about the syllabus.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay. There was one particular aspect of the math in the syllabus that wasn't taught at all by math teachers.
They don't get that far.
Either they don't get that far, or they just intentionally avoid it. I don't know how what was happening in other schools, but generally math teachers would avoid it. But what we realized as students was that there was almost always a question on that particular one in the final exams, and math teachers would not teach that. And looking back, what I realized is that topic was more like technical drawing.
Oh.
Because you had to do constructing angles and stuff, using rulers and using your drawing board and doing things. It was not number 1 plus 1. It was more constructive. You had to use your compass to construct something, angles and measuring. And for some reason, math masters would skip that.
Do you think it's because they didn't have the resources? Because for the other topics, it's chalk and the blackboard.
Right. Most students didn't have those resources.
Do the teachers have those?
And the teachers probably didn't have.
If you don't have a compass,
how would you demonstrate how to put that on the board? That is definitely true. And that's how I'm going to come back to. When we're in Form 1, SS1, or secondary school Form 1, they introduced technical drawing as a subject on its own.
On its own, separate from mathematics.
Separate from mathematics. Now, it became a requirement for every student to have this equipment. You have to have your compass, your rule, your drawing board, and everything you need.
Right.
It became part of your perspective that you had to bring with you. So for the first time in the secondary school, our group, everybody had to have those. And we started studying that as a subject in Form 1. And believe it or not, by the time we end Form 1 with that subject, we could solve problems in the final exams which were questioning on those subjects
in
mathematics. So we now had to teach Form 5 students how to do that. It became a bonus question for anybody within our group to pick in that final exam, because you're studying technical drawing, which is going deeper, much more deeper than what was taught in mathematics as part of that drawing.
Because it's a whole subject.
It's a whole subject on its own. So by the time you finish Form 1, that part of the math, final exams math, was not even something they would test you on in technical drawing. It became, so you can see the difference.
Yes.
Resource.
Yes.
Because they didn't, now those in Form 5, they still found that to be harder. You now in Form 1, because you get the exposure, because you get the resources, it is much easier for you to deal with it. Yeah, so technical, that I would say it was hard for most people because of the reason that I just gave. But it became easier for us in our year group because we got that exposure to technical drawing.
Wonderful. Let me take you then to speak in more specific terms to resources beyond textbook and so on. Let's talk, for instance, about the math teacher. What was your experience with the mathematics teacher or teachers?
I have mixed feelings about math teachers in general. So I'll pick two that I will remember. I just wanted to say there was we had one math teacher who was from Nigeria.
Okay. That's fair.
No. He wasn't from Nigeria. He was actually a Ghanaian who went to university in Nigeria.
Okay,
he studied in Nigeria. So when he was coming from Nigeria. Okay. But we thought he was Nigerian.
I see.
Then we finally discovered that he wasn't a Nigerian. He was from Ghana, but he studied in Nigeria and came back.
I see.
Math, you're supposed to be standing on the board and teaching math.
Right.
This was a math teacher who was teaching math sitting at the desk.
Huh.
So I don't forget that.
He didn't touch the board.
He would come to class, he would sit behind his box, he would open his textbook, and he would sit there. For the entire lesson, he's reading things off the book, and then he would call a student once in a while to go to the board and put something. So how do you get students even interested in the subject in the first place?
Wonderful. It's an unusual,
very unusual
to teach in any subject.
Let alone a subject that you need to be on the board.
Mathematics, when you're supposed to be showing things, demonstrating, illustrating how you do things on the board. But this was a gentleman who was so gentle that he could not stand on the board. He could not bother to stand up.
No, he could not dirty his hands with a chalk on the board.
Okay, so that's
he was a very demoralizing mathematics teacher.
That would not be
very demoralizing mathematics teacher, and most people don't forget him. We have a year group,
yes,
and on WhatsApp, on Facebook, people will constantly bring him up
as a recollection of
where is this man? Is he still alive?
Oh my goodness!
So that's one. Then we had a math. He, for special reason, was not even a formal math teacher for the school. And he wasn't an old student of the school. But he just had some interest in helping students. I guess I would say that time he probably had the same conviction that we're talking about right now. He saw how students were failing mathematics. And that was, again, a block in them advancing to anything to improve their future. So somehow he got interested in helping students improve in their mathematics. He was a very good math teacher, but he wasn't a teacher. He was at the time I think an accountant. He worked in some kind of capacity in the city, but he wasn't a teacher.
So how did he get involved in the school?
Right, so this is what I'm coming to. And it was him, and then there was one other gentleman. His strength was English. He was a literature teacher in some other school, but he was from the city that I went to school. So he also took interest in trying to improve, the English and all that. So it was English and math. They get some of their friends in the universities who were still students in universities and technical schools, they get them together and they came up with an idea. What can we do to help these kids,
these young people,
guys, so that they can get past this English math problem? So they agreed on organizing outside of school classes, extra. For any students who wanted to do it, it's free.
Free of charge.
Free. They're not going to charge anything. So they had math. They picked only those subjects that were really of problem to students. So there was math, there was English, and then the science subjects. So there was chemistry, physics, and biology. Those 5 courses. And this particular man who taught mathematics, I would never forget. He had an approach to the teaching that made it completely different from any other math teacher I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Up to that point and after.
And even after. And this is what, and I'm talking in terms of, so strategic learning. We study mathematics from Form 1, in our case, through Form 5. And this cumulative learning, the purpose of it was to account for it in one sitting.
Yes.
For the O-levels exams. That is the entire purpose of it.
That's right.
If you could work page 1 to the last page for all the textbooks, and you couldn't solve the problems when you confronted with it on the final day, it is of no use to you.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can't justify it.
No.
But what we realized at the time was it was very difficult to connect what was in the textbooks to what is in the final exam.
In the exam,
it was very difficult in the exam questions. The way the textbooks were structured. You were talking about the textbooks. When we went to school, the textbooks were all the same for the entire white countries.
That's true.
They were the JSP,
General Mathematics.
Yes. So it's the same. You just getting these books from somewhere you don't even know they're coming from. The way the content was structured, it was very difficult to do the connection. You studying this and then you take those exam questions and you're not seeing the connection. Now this guy comes in, and that was the first thing he said in class. The only purpose for you learning all those things
for 5 years
is to pass that exams. So my approach to this is to lead you to the exams. So you know what he did the first day of class?
Mm-hmm.
He brought the mathematics syllabus, and for the first time, somebody brought in the syllabus. The syllabus is what points out the topics that are going to reflect in your final exams.
Of course.
Nobody.
That's the template.
Nobody in my entire academic up to that point, I was in Form 3 at the time. Nobody, no math teacher or any subject teacher ever come to class and say this are the syllabus,
and this is the thing.
And this is the guide that will take you to the finals. These are the topics. These are the things that you require to learn. All they did was textbook, page 1, page 3. You did all that. That's it. So there was no connection. This was the first guy who comes to the class and begin to connect the two. So he listed, he gave everybody a copy of the syllabus.
Wow.
He made copies of them. And this was Form 3. We still had 2 more years to the final exams. Mm-hmm. And he didn't care about that. Gave everybody copies.
So you have your destination in your hand.
You now know what you're supposed to do. Then he comes to class every day, starting from the beginning of the syllabus. This is the chapters that are supposed to be covered in the syllabus. Then he goes through that. And then, on top of doing this, so after every chapter he goes through, he has 10 years of questions, both multiple choice and essay form questions. Mm-hmm. He will go through each of them and pick out questions from the chapter you just discussed and have you try your hands on it.
So here you are 2 years away from the exam.
2 years from the exams, and you already getting prepared for it. Because what he was trying to get us is every little thing you do from that Form 1 all the way to Form 5 is reflected in that exam. Don't ever see, and which is the mistake most students make. I'm not preparing for the exams until my final year.
Yeah, because the exam is final year.
Right, let's wait.
Let's wait until then.
Let me just pass and go to the next class. We not...
So it's micro thinking.
Right.
Instead of looking at it at a macro level. Interesting.
Instead of linking everything you do to that end result.
Right.
Form 1, yes, of course, you're studying certain things in Form 1. You're not going to repeat those things in Form 2. But yet, you're going to account for them in the final exams. Mm-hmm. So there should be some connection. Somebody has to help you connect that and see that. And it even somehow, you know what? There is some satisfaction to the student. Somebody finishes Form 1, and at that point, they don't even think that they have achieved anything yet. To help the child now see, for what you have just done, look at what it has helped you to do in the finals. You are able to solve this problem. Even if
there are 2 questions.
Even if there are just 2, you are able to solve them. You knock this out your checklist. And when you go to Form 2, you do that, you knock this down. And this is how. And that, for most of us, we're very fortunate to be in that guy's class. For him to be able to do that. And that became my guide moving forward for every other subject.
Now, so how long was this interaction with this gentleman?
Unbelievably, it was just a short period of time.
Really?
It was probably like 2-3 months. That was it. Done. But that practice continued with me.
Change the perspective.
Right. For everything I want to do now, I'm looking at, so I'm sitting here studying, but what is that?
What's the goal?
Right.
Where are we headed?
It got to be the finals.
Interesting. Now, let's we've talked about the textbook in kind of like in passing, but if you were to take a look at the textbook themselves, you've said certain things, but I want you to look at that issue probably a little deeper. So one, the format, as you were saying earlier, is not connected to the exam. The other things about the textbook, particularly when we're thinking about this new generation of students in the 21st century, what does the math textbook need to have, for instance, today, to make it relevant? Because if your math textbook was like mine, I don't remember any images. I don't remember any color. Black and white, X and Y, 1 and 2. That's it.
Right. No illustrations.
No illustration.
Yeah, so illustration definitely will be important. But beyond that, if I was going to write a textbook, a math textbook,
Right.
I would have that math textbook reflect this guy's approach I just talked about. What about dedicate a couple of pages in the beginning of your math textbooks to the syllabus of the subject content?
So make the syllabus the table of contents.
Right. Just reserve something in the beginning and list the syllabus. This is the syllabus for mathematics for SSS. Not everybody has access to that thing. It is an eye opener, and it is very. I don't understand why that was the case.
Now, I don't want to miss what you're saying. What you're saying is not every student gets to even
see the syllabus until they take their final. Even after there will be some past students today. If you talk to them about syllabus, they will be shocked that there was something called syllabus.
Wonderful.
Yes, most people don't even get to see or know about it, because when I was in school, it was after we got this exposure, then we came back to school. Okay, we're talking about syllabus. Every subject area actually did have syllabus, and the school had them.
No, the syllabus is a book.
It was a big book sitting in the library.
Yes, it's a book.
Nobody ever told students about it. Nobody ever brought that to class.
It's not a requirement on the reading list to buy.
Right.
So if you are aware, then you have to go look for it,
Right.
and purchase.
But at least it was in the library. So
If you need to go look for it.
a diligent teacher would say, hey, this subject we're going through a list of subjects, a list of topics. Those topics are from, I'm not making them up.
Right.
I'm not the teacher making them up.
Even if it's to photocopy the pages pertinent to your own subject.
That's what that guy did. He didn't buy the book.
Right.
He just picked the pages from the library, make copies of them, and distribute them to. That became our Bible.
So you have the plan.
Yes, it's a guide. It helps a lot, and that's how I work through my A-levels all the way to university, making sure you always know, because we used to have this slogan called non-slap, right?
What's that?
In Ghana, in high school.
That's a lingo for.
This was a lingo. Non-slap. Like, now that we know about the syllabus, and we now had the upper hand. You see somebody, and that's how that whole thing started. If you see somebody studying something, working their back off, and without a master plan, and then you look at the syllabus,
and you know it's not in there.
Hey, you know what you're studying is not in here. So you see, effort is being wasted.
It's being wasted.
Even though you're learning something, that's fine. You're learning something, but in the end, like I said, you could, if you're able to solve all the problems in all the textbooks, and you don't pass the O levels. You don't pass your SS exams, you cannot justify the knowledge that you just
No, in fact, what you also left unsaid is the document, the syllabus created by WAEC allows WAEC to then proceed to set questions per subject based on that.
Based on the syllabus, yes.
So, and that's why when, in some conversations that I've been a part of, WAEC does not understand what the problem is. It's not my fault that people are failing. I gave you the plan.
That's right.
The questions come out of the plan.
So there's an agreement from the beginning where everything is going to come out from. So why come back and blame me?
And blame me for people failing.
Right.
So the school is supposed to follow the plan. And so when there's a missing link, then there's a problem.
If I can chip this in this discussion, just that you mentioned WAEC. When I finished my A levels. In Ghana, we used to do national service.
After A-levels?
Yes.
Ah.
Ghana, we used to do national service.
We do as after the bachelor's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In Ghana, we used to do compulsory national service before you go to university. So after A levels, I was doing my national service, and the reason why I brought this is because you just mentioned WAEC. It was quite interesting. We had a student. This was an overall good student. When he set the final exams and the results came, he failed mathematics. What we're just talking about right now. Now, the problem was this was a student who was doing both the general math and the elective math. He failed the general math and passed the elective math,
which is supposed
to be the tougher one. So how did that happen? And this was a student we all knew was very good. So personally, I just couldn't get it.
It doesn't make sense.
It just did not make sense. And I was on national service. I wasn't even full staff. So we're talking about it. There was a lady on the staff. So me and her, we sitting in somewhere and we're talking about it. Unfortunately, at the time the results came, this guy, just the same week that he got his results, he lost his father too. So it was like a really shocking. And he had to deal with two things. Now he can't go to university. He can't. His father is not here. So somehow I spoke to the lady. I said, well, you know what? Maybe let's find out. Maybe something happened. We never know. So we went to the WAEC office, and we talked to the director. It was just about questioning them. You know, can something happen? Do they think? I mean, I never knew that anything could have happened, but we just said, let's find out.
It's not a perfect process.
It's not right. It's human system.
No, I spoke to
anything can happen.
It's not a perfect process.
So when we talked to him, he said that he doesn't know for that particular case, but they have had cases in the past where somebody made some error. And from what we're telling him, based on this kid's academic work, it does seem like the possibility of something like that happening.
It might be a staffing error,
something
error, recording error.
Anything can happen. But then, because the kid took the exam through school, it wasn't a private registered exam.
You have to formally write.
It had to come from the school.
Exactly.
The school had to petition for WAEC to investigate. So
let me stop you there and say, even that process is unknown to many principals.
That is the problem again.
They don't challenge the result.
They don't.
Even when it doesn't make any sense. I mean, how do you pass advanced mathematics
and pass everything else
and fail the lower cadre of mathematics?
It doesn't make sense because the concepts are the same. One is advanced and one is lower.
Yeah, you pass advanced and you pass the lower.
Pass this one. How can you explain that? But you know, the funny thing was, when we came back to school and we met with the principal,
required him to write a letter.
We didn't even require him. We just was telling him what we had from what WAEC told us. Instead of him being excited about the fact that there's a possibility that we can correct this error, he was upset of the fact that we went above beyond. We didn't ask him. We didn't seek permission from him before doing that.
No, that's the issue, right?
Yes, so now that's the issue.
The
issue is not the fact that a kid was about. He was so upset that why did you have to go to do this? Why are you taking things in your own hands and doing it? But you wasn't doing it.
So did he do anything to help this kid?
So after that, we just said, let's sit and wait. Let's wait. Let's see what he's going to do. So me and the lady, we just kind of back off a little bit and we're watching. I see that he wasn't making. Went to the director again, and this time we're just trying to find out if he had received anything. Maybe he had done something and didn't tell us or anything.
Yes.
So he said, no, he hasn't gotten anything. So then that was the time he asked us what school we were talking about. As soon as we mentioned the school, he knew this guy. He said, that's not going to happen. He knew the principal. He said, it's not going to happen. This guy's not going to do it. You know why? Because when you petition WAEC for that, there is a fee that goes with it. He doesn't want to spend that money.
There's money to petition WAEC
Yes.
to investigate some processes.
Yes. And we asked him, why do you have to pay? Because you already paid to take the exams.
Yeah, this is customer service.
Right. Then he said, okay, this is how it works. You're supposed to pay that money up front. They're supposed to conduct that investigation.
But how much money are we talking about?
I forgot what it was. But he said that when they go through the investigation and find out the error was WAEC's own error, you get that money back.
Oh, so it's actually a deposit.
Kind of a deposit.
Depending on
whose fault it was. Because he said, okay, it caused them to have to bring whatever to go through all that. Right. So if it comes out that it was WAEC's own fault, you get the money back. If it comes out that that was the legit record of the student
and
everything was done right, then you don't get the money back.
You pay for wasting our time.
He couldn't take that gamble. He couldn't take that risk of putting that money forward.
In spite of the life of a child.
And I'm not sure if that could not be covered by the administrative cost. You couldn't use school resources to do that. But he would not put his money forward.
No, especially for a student who has a record. During attendance of being a good student, whose result is inconsistent
was probably
with his
the number
performance.
one kid in that school.
It doesn't make any sense.
That kid was probably the best student he could have. But he would not do this.
Wow.
So we went back to school. We went to the administration, grabbed this kid school records because we wanted the WAEC guy to see it. So we brought, you know how they give them their term report and they keep copies.
Right.
We took that to this guy. When he looked at, he himself was upset.
On behalf of the kid.
He could not. He said that there had to be a mistake somewhere.
Of course.
There had to be some problem somewhere because they have this cumulative. What is it?
Cumulative exam.
No, they used to have continuous
assessment process. Yes.
In school.
Right.
And that continuous assessment you're getting scored is 40% of your final score. So when you finally sit that exams, it's only 60%. 40% is already a D.
Before you even,
I mean, was it
sit for this?
Some E, right? It's already an. It's not. So if continuous assessment, and the funny thing is, it wasn't just that this student had a bad score. He had an F in math. It wasn't even like he just got a bad score.
So which will mean that even his school record was not a part of the competition.
That's what the guy from WAEC said. If this guy had a perfect continuous assessment, there was just no way he could get an F. The worst he could have gotten would have been an E, even if he didn't sit the exam.
Let's say he scored 0 on the exam.
Even if he had scored 0, he would get an E because of the continuous assessment. So that F had to be a problem. So now he took it upon himself.
Without the pay?
No, he got in touch with the principal himself. Now he was dealing with him directly. Now he wouldn't talk to me and the lady now because now he's getting a call from WAEC. He's getting the contact from WAEC. Now he has to do this, whether he like it or not. So the WAEC guy got in touch with him, and together they got involved. Come to find out, it was an error.
That's not a surprise to me.
But even when we got the report back, I felt it was not an error, it was deliberate. They switched the grades.
Gave his grade to somebody. Because what I learned in the end was, when they do all this marking and everything and the tabulation and everything, they have total number of every category of grades. So you can't change that. There is 20 number of A's, there is 20 number of B's, there is 30 number of C's, that number. You cannot change that because they can track that. They cannot track individual students' grades. So you can swap them. Wow.
You can take somebody's A and somebody's F and swap them. It will not change the totals.
Yeah, because it looks the same.
It's the same.
Statistically.
So if you have an F and I want to help you, I cannot change your F to A until I take somebody's A's and give it to you and switch it over. That's the only way I can do it.
Wow. So his grade went to somebody else?
His grade probably went to somebody else, but he had an F. But then what they did is they went and brought his scripts. The actual marking was an A on it, but the data entered was an F. You can type in an F and think it's and
one doesn't look like
look, I mean, doesn't look like there is just no way that would happen. But the thing is, eventually they changed the grade.
And issued a result from why?
Yes, and it showed the separate results. So why can be a factor sometimes.
Yes, I agree. And there's nothing you've said that is strange to me, because I interviewed Wyatt. And apparently, in the entire process from the school all the way through grading, all the way through recording data entry, even exams, making it from WAEC to the exam centers, the leakage issue,
yes,
all of those, there's every human dimension could come into it. But the beautiful thing is WAEC has a process for what you've done,
yes,
which was not publicized.
Nobody knows about that, right?
So there are a lot of kids who see their own results. They don't believe that it was their result. WAEC, is to some of these students just an untouchable entity that you don't question.
Yes.
So rather than question WAEC and probably get the kind of result that you've just described, you just move on. What do I do now?
But the problem is, whether people move on. I can
Well,
tell you
examples
of people from my past that there is no way to prove it. But just like the example of this guy, I can tell you a whole bunch of people.
His life will go in a different direction.
Yes, you know what they're capable of. And then you see a result that somehow baffles you. Like,
defies
this
explanation.
really, yes, reflect this kid's effort. And what that does is, it kills their morale. If I put all this effort, and
what should I do it again?
Okay, or even now, what should I do? What else can I do? What else different? I have done every little thing I was supposed to do and still get this grade. What different? What else can I do different?
So you throw up your hands and...
So you just throw up your hand and say, okay, I give up. I can't change this.
Let's come back to your example. We've talked about teaching, we've talked about textbook, we've talked about WAEC. When you look at your own experience, if I were to ask you, what's the single most important factor of all the number of factors that you've raised and that you might have thought about? What's the single most important factor that led to your own success in mathematics?
I would say it's a cumulative thing. But one single would be motivation, I think. And
yeah, motivation.
Yes, it is. Our society is set up in such a way that I am the firstborn.
In your family?
Yes. If you're the firstborn, there's always a responsibility.
I can relate.
Okay, so you can relate that. That alone is enough motivation to work extra hard.
Because you're supposed to lay good examples for your siblings
that are coming behind you.
Yes.
So that alone was a real burden and a motivation for me to do more. Okay, so in secondary school I never had holidays. Every single holidays was either going to extra classes and waking up in the middle of the night and practicing
to study
and do a lot more. And I would attribute the success to that. Just the motivation and understanding what the expectation is of you. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are looking up to you. That your success or failure has ripple effects on many people, and also just to be an example. Sometimes sometimes I always look at the kids, and sometimes I tell them funny things. I said, you do all that. My terminal reports used to come to. My dad used to work with this gas station. He used to deal with fuel stuff they used to have. But he had no educational background. He's just a personal business person who get into those things. So my terminal reports would come through there. He would bring it home. He would call you and give it to you. he had no understanding of anything. All he does is give it to you.
So you're self-responsible.
Yes. So now you wish he could understand and appreciate what you have done. Like you've done all this, but for him it didn't really. He didn't grasp that. He didn't get it. So yes, your report. Oh, okay, your report came, and here you go. So you take it, but you get past that by looking at, like I said, what society expects of you. In the end, he would know. Even if your terminal report is not
something that you studied,
but
closely.
in the end, if you don't pass, he would know that you didn't. If you can go to the next school, if you can go to the
next class,
he would know. Right. But of course, he would also hear from, oh, your kid is doing good. Oh, your kid is doing good, and then
So the point you're making is, if you have the best textbook in the world, the best teacher in the world, the best library in the world, the best classroom, without your own motivation,
there's not going nowhere.
There's no go.
Yeah, personal motivation is very important to everything. Even if you have the resources or you don't. So I would rather have personal motivation without the resources. The motivation would take me to the resources, would chase that resources, than to have it. Yes, than to have it without a personal motivation. I'm just going to sit on it and fail. You're basically going to do that, and that somehow reflects on my A levels. I didn't go to. Okay, in Nigeria, you guys had the same system.
Yes.
You go to Form 1 to Form 5, and then go to sub-form, and then I didn't go to sub-form. The reason was when we finished O levels at the time, then we had to select the next school you had to go to for A levels. You didn't necessarily have to stay in your school. So I went to secondary school in a much far off place. That was not one of the best schools. But for A levels, I wanted to go to one of the top schools. So when we were doing the selections to go, I picked my first choice, my second choice, my third choice. I just gambled. You were supposed to pick first, second, third different schools, but I was particularly for one particular school. So I picked it first, second, third.
Same school.
Same school. Accra Academy. You know Accra Academy. Okay, so it's one of the top schools in Ghana. So I picked that one for the school. All right. So after O levels, I'm back in the city and I'm waiting for the results. The results came. I passed everything. Everything is good. I went and got my results, and then I went and got my uncle. Let's go talk about the admission and everything. We went there. Okay, here's your admission. But on top of the admission, this is your school fees. Okay, where is that school fees coming from? And I remember at the time, but the first expression that came from my uncle was, that is enough money to send you abroad.
And you want to spend it on a crap?
That is enough money to send you abroad.
Wow.
So we couldn't do it. We could not pay for it. So then, in the mix of all this, what should we do? All the other schools were already closing their enrollments because I gambled.
The schools that you did not select.
I did not select any of those. If I had to go there, then we had to go through some bank channel and did some collection and get to some process. Right. Yes, and then the more you delay, the more it gets to a point where you can't make it again. They already closed enrollment. Right. And that's what happened. Close enrollment. So now, my uncle and I went to one of his friend's house. And we somehow in the conversation, it came up. My nephew, we did this, and that, and then we ended up not him getting into one of the schools because of this and this and that. And his friend brought up the issue of this personal motivation. He said something. He said, he didn't need to be in the sub-form to write the A levels. You didn't know that? Then that got me thinking. You didn't need to be in a sub-form.
In other words, you don't have to be in the formal environment
to take that exams because there is a private A levels exam.
Yeah, there's external exam.
Okay. So he said, okay, you don't pay that money, that's not the end of it. You couldn't pay that money, that's not the end of it. That personal motivation. If you want, he said, I went through the sub-form. But I tell you what, if I could redo things, I probably wouldn't go to that sub-form again. I could have done exactly the same thing
Yes.
without being in that school.
Find the syllabus.
If I get the syllabus, if I get the textbooks, and I could study.
Mhm.
And there are private classes if you feel like you need
Yeah, you
one.
need help in a particular subject.
In the
Yeah.
end, that's exactly what I did. So we came back, said, okay, so I need to get the books.
Mm.
I got the books. I get the books that I needed for all the courses that I needed, and the library became my second home,
The library becoming your school.
my school. Every single day, it almost like I was there for them to open the library. I'll be the last for them to close the library.
Wow.
Because now, I'm looking at my colleagues that I came out of secondary school from.
They went to
with.
sixth form.
They are in sixth form now. They
You're
are getting
outside.
formal tuition. I'm outside, and I'm still trying to be at par with them. Without wasting time, and without the extra tuition they get it. So I figured I needed to work extra harder in order at the end to be at par
Able
with
to
them.
at least make a good
Make up the
result
difference.
to go to university.
But to be honest with you, in the end, my results was much better than most of them.
Of course.
In the end, because now, from what the man had told me, why he felt if he could do things different, he wouldn't go to Suffolk.
Mm.
I now realize what he was talking about. When you go to Suffolk, just like we were talking about in secondary school, from one Dunbar, because I'm not close to the finals,
Right.
Suffolk was the same thing.
Wait until the
Lower
second year.
self was to fool around.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the time. Oh, you the big guy. You chasing the girls and doing all that. Let me wait till the upper six.
And then I start getting
I was
serious.
still getting serious. So you have 1 year to prepare. I was
work for 2
preparing
years.
this entire 1 year first of all. So it helped me a lot. So
So motivation,
Yes.
self-motivation. I take that. So let's talk about after. So now you graduated from secondary school, A levels, and all that, and now you're a professional working in the field that is a scientific field. If you were to look at what you do now, is there a particular subject or topic in mathematics that is paying off now in your profession? You understood it in high school, so now it's a tool that's available to you as a professional.
Okay. So actually, I do work in the profession or in an organization that is more science.
Yeah.
But I'm an administrator. I work in finance.
Okay. Well, numbers and finance.
Right. So that's what I was trying to say. And somehow, mathematics, grasping that concept of mathematics and being strong in mathematics in the beginning, as a foundation, laying that foundation,
No, may I remind
was
you
what.
that very early on, your classmates were afraid that you would drag the school result down.
Yes.
Okay, so that was you.
That was.
This
and
is
then
you now.
right? So I started off as a science student, right? But then, like it's just the story I just gave about not being able to get into the A levels, I kind of had to do that outside of a formal education.
Because you don't have a laboratory.
I don't have a lab. I don't have any guide. So I had to be realistic with myself, and then had to sit around and switch over from sciences to business. Now, it's going to be a lot harder for somebody from business to science than somebody from science to business. And the basic premise with that ease of switch is the mathematics foundation. You are more comfortable with numbers. So it's easier for you to cross over because they're already dealing with numbers. And most of them are really struggling with it because of not really giving more attention to mathematics in the beginning.
Because of the lack of foundation.
Right, but you gave enough attention to mathematics in the beginning, so you're comfortable with numbers. Numbers don't scare you.
And apart from that, then you have the flexibility of going in all kinds of directions.
Good math foundation gives you that flexibility to be able to go in any kind of direction that you choose to. if you already have a good foundation. It helps a lot in the end.
So, having said all of that, if you were to give an advice to students sitting today in a high school having difficulty with mathematics, what would you say to them?
It would be a multifaceted thing for them to do. First of all, they have to understand that math is just like any other subject. You're not scared of economics, or you're not scared of
History.
accounting or history, because you've given them time. First of all, you have to give mathematics enough time, just like you give any other subject. That's one. You have to give it the same time, or a little more
time.
extra, because now you left. It's if you leave it, it will leave you. Math is just like any other thing else.
So you have to befriend it.
You have to be friend, and you have to confront it. You can't, like I said in my situation with elementary school, I literally was 2 years behind. But then you approach it in a way that you become aggressive with it. You become it helps you to become comfortable with it. So that's my first advice, is just to do it. Don't. You need to get over the phobia. I don't like mathematics. When you don't like
Oh, it's too hard.
right. When you don't like something, it wouldn't like you back.
It's just
It's the same thing. You don't like math, math is not going to like you. You like it and you do it, and just anything, just do it with that self-confidence. I can do it. Okay, so that's one. And the next thing is to be a strategic learner. You have to understand that in the end, it is the results that matter. It is that SS maths grade that ultimately matters. And correlating the two, making sure you're making the reference from your syllabus to the text, from the syllabus to the exam, from the syllabus to the past, and you're doing that all through till the final exams. That day you go to sit in that exams, you know you already passed an exam.
No, that's not the day you're passing.
I mean, the day you
that's the day you're just giving accountability for what you've done. Interesting. Thank you very much for your time, and it's been a very interesting conversation. You're welcome. Really appreciate it.